Police throw black girl into sewage, but her father does the impossible. What would happen if the life of an innocent child turned into a battleground against racism and injustice? In the city of Chicago, Maya, a 10-year-old black girl, finds herself in a nightmare when she becomes the target of an unimaginable act of cruelty. While walking down the street, two police officers, Tom and Brad, with their hearts hardened by prejudice, grab her and throw her into a sewage drain, laughing and humiliating her. What they don't know is that her father, Marcus Evans, is a prominent civil rights attorney and a proud former Army member, someone who has dedicated his life to fighting against injustice. If you are enjoying this story, please like and subscribe to the channel and comment your city in the comments. When Marcus discovers what happened to his daughter, a flame of determination ignites within him. He not only seeks justice for Maya, but also feels compelled to expose the systemic racism that permeates his city's police force. The story of Maya and Marcus intertwines in a powerful tale of courage, resilience, and the fight for change in a world that often seems against them. On a sunny day, Maya was walking through the neighborhood, carefree and full of dreams. She dreamed of becoming an artist, painting the vibrant colors of life on large canvases. But that day, marked by an unjust police encounter, catapulted her into a dark and hostile universe. The cold sensation of the sewage, the humiliation, and the fear became a reality she could never have imagined. As she recovered from this shock, her mind filled with questions and insecurities. What had she done to deserve such treatment? How could she fight against something so big and frightening? Marcus, upon receiving the news, felt a wave of anger and despair. He had faced battles in his life, but nothing prepared him to see his daughter suffer. The environment they lived in, often marked by inequality and discrimination, weighed heavily on Marcus's shoulders. He knew he had to act, not just for Maya, but for all the children who might face the same situation. The passion for justice pulsed in his veins, and he was determined to use his influence to provoke change. The relationship between father and daughter was filled with love and support. Marcus always encouraged Maya to follow her dreams, to express her creativity, and to never let fear paralyze her. Now he found himself facing a dilemma. How could he protect his daughter while simultaneously fighting against the system that was against them? He decided that he needed to be the voice that would echo in the city, fighting against the oppression and racism that had deeply rooted themselves. Maya's interactions with her friends and neighbors revealed her gentle and dreamy nature. She always strived to help others and dreamed of making a difference through art. Each shared laugh and every discussed dream made her pain even more intense, but it also propelled her to fight. Seeing her community mobilize in support of her, Maya began to understand that she was not alone. There was strength in united voices, and this ignited a new hope in her heart. As Marcus started to plan his legal strategy, he remembered the lessons he had learned throughout his life. The fight for justice would not be easy, but he knew that every step taken towards the truth could change the course of history. He reflected on his past in the army and how it shaped his character. Now he was ready to face the most important battle of his life, a fight that was not just for his daughter, but for all those who faced similar injustices. The story of Maya and Marcus was not just about pain and overcoming, it was a call to action. Marcus's determination to expose systemic racism resonated in every corner of Chicago, and Maya's courage inspired hope in the hearts of all ages. Together, they would become the voice of a new generation that refused to accept oppression as a part of life. They were a beacon of hope in a world that often seemed dark and desolate. Maya felt lost in a sea of emotions. The humiliation she had suffered echoed in her mind, and every time she closed her eyes, the image of the police officers' faces haunted her. She tried to focus on her drawings, but the colors that once danced in her mind now seemed dull. With the help of her mother, who enveloped her in comforting hugs, Maya began to understand that she needed to express her pain through art. But how could she do that when fear still oppressed her? Meanwhile, Marcus was determined to turn his anger into action. He knew that words were not enough. He needed evidence, witnesses, and a solid strategy to expose what had truly happened. He sought out friends and colleagues, people who understood the system well and could help him chart a path. Among them was Carla, a local journalist known for her courage in investigating cases of injustice. When Marcus approached her, she immediately committed to giving voice to Maya's story. That afternoon, while Maya tried to draw in her notebook, Marcus sat beside her. He noticed the tension in her face and the sadness in her eyes. Carefully he asked, "What are you feeling, Maya?" The girl hesitated, but the concern in her father's eyes encouraged her to open her heart. I don't understand why they did this to me, Daddy. I just wanted to go home." Marcus took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. Sometimes people do terrible things because they don't understand or because they are afraid. But that's not your fault, my dear. I promise I will fight so this never happens to you or anyone else. Maya looked at him, seeking comfort in her father's words, but one cruel doubt tormented her. What if you can't? What if they don't hear you? Marcus felt a tightness in his heart. He wanted to be strong for his daughter, but the uncertainty of what was to come began to settle in his mind. "I will try my best, Maya, and even if I fail, you will always have your voice. Never let anyone make you feel that you are not important. Your art can touch people in ways you can't even imagine." He knew that even though his intentions were good, reality was often cruel and relentless. As these moments of vulnerability occurred between father and daughter, tensions in the community began to rise. Maya's friends at school, like Lucas and Anna, were eager to support her. However, their approaches were different. Lucas, a strong-willed boy always ready for action, wanted them to protest immediately. "We need to make some noise," he exclaimed, his eyes shining with indignation. "If we don't do this, they'll think they can keep acting like this." Anna, on the other hand, was more cautious. But what if it just makes things worse? What if they retaliate? The doubt in her voice reflected the fear many felt, and Maya realized that the same fear that paralyzed her also affected her friends. Maya, in her innocence, was torn. She wanted everyone to be united, but the idea of protesting terrified her. The last thing she wanted was more conflict. One day, while they were talking after school, Lucas turned to her and said, "You are the reason we are doing this, Maya. If you don't feel safe, what can we do? We need you." Lucas's words hit her hard. She felt important, but the weight of being the voice of a struggle she never asked to face also rested on her shoulders. Doubt began to creep in again. What if she failed? What would happen if all of this made her even more vulnerable? Marcus, for his part, was delving deeper into his investigations. He began gathering documentation on similar cases in the city, establishing a pattern of behavior that showed how systemic racism manifested within the police force. In a meeting with Carla, he expressed his concerns. "I know it's a tough battle, but I can't let my daughter's pain become just another statistic. This needs to change." "I understand, Marcus," Carla replied, her voice firm, "but we also need to be prepared for the backlash. They won't stay quiet. Are you willing to face that, even if it means putting your own safety at risk?" Marcus's determined gaze did not waver. "If we don't fight for this, we are allowing them to keep doing whatever they want, and I can't let that happen." The conversations between Marcus and Carla were filled with tension, but also with hope. They were joining forces, and even with uncertainty hanging over them, determination began to take root. However, the pressure was mounting, and Marcus found himself fighting not only against the system, but also against his own doubts. He questioned whether he was doing enough, whether his actions would truly make a difference. The fight for justice was a tangled field of uncertainties and challenges. Maya, for her part, was in a cycle of introspection. She began to understand that although she was a child, she had the power to make a difference. The art that was once just a dream was now becoming a form of expression and resistance. In a moment of clarity, she decided that even if she was scared, she would not let that paralyze her. If she could use her art to speak, maybe she could find the courage she so desperately needed. The connection between father and daughter grew stronger with each passing day. Marcus taught Maya the importance of fighting, not just for herself, but for those who couldn't fight. And while doubt still loomed over their heads, love and determination guided them toward an uncertain future, but one full of possibilities. The battle had begun, and together they were ready to face whatever came their way. Maya felt increasingly pressured. Her father's support, which was now becoming a pillar of strength, could not entirely dissipate the shadow of fear that surrounded her. Conversations about protests and justice left her restless. The idea of exposing herself and being the center of attention terrified her. She feared that if she failed, the pain of what she had experienced would become an unbearable burden. As she tried to find solace in her drawings, the lines became smudges, and the colors failed to tell the story she needed. The atmosphere at school was also changing. Lucas and Anna, Maya's close friends, were on opposite sides. Lucas, with his youthful fervor, organized a group of students to plan a peaceful protest. He believed it was time to act, not just talk. Meanwhile, Anna, always the voice of reason, tried to convince them to wait. "We need to make sure this will help Maya and not make things worse," she said while Maya listened, torn between Lucas's courage and Anna's caution. The mood in the classroom was tense. Students were debating heatedly, and Maya felt as though she were at the center of a storm. She wanted everyone to be united, but the idea of exposing herself still sent chills down her spine. The pressure of being the reason for a demonstration left her paralyzed. What if something goes wrong? What if they hurt us? She thought, as anxiety grew within her. That night, as she tried to sleep, Maya lay awake, tossing and turning in bed. What troubled her most was the doubt about whether she should really support Lucas and his plan. In her mind, she saw herself on a stage, surrounded by people shouting her name, but instead of strength, she felt weakness. The image of the police haunted her, and she began to wonder if she was ready to confront it again. Tears streamed down her face as she fought against her own demons. Meanwhile, Marcus delved deeper into his fight against the system. He spent hours reviewing documents, searching for patterns of behavior that could support his case. But the pressure was starting to weigh on him as well. Every new piece of information he found felt like a reminder that the fight was bigger than he had imagined. With each step, he questioned whether he was really making a difference, or if all of this was in vain. The fear of failure was not just his. He felt he could fail for Maya, and that idea consumed him. In a meeting with Carla, the journalist, the tension was palpable. They were up against a powerful machine, Marcus. "They had resources, and we are just two people trying to make a difference," she said, her voice heavy with concern. Marcus felt a chill in his stomach. He knew things weren't simple, but his determination to fight for Maya drove him. "I won't give up. I can't allow myself to do that," he replied, a glimmer of determination in his eyes, but doubt still lingered in his mind. As discussions about the protest intensified, Maya decided she needed to find a way to express her pain without exposing herself so directly. She began working on a series of drawings that depicted her experience, trying to capture the essence of the fear and vulnerability that haunted her. Each stroke became a form of release, but at the same time, the memory of what she had gone through still left her paralyzed. The dilemma between exposing herself or remaining silent hurt her deeply. When the day of the protest arrived, the school was filled with excited students. Lucas, enthusiastic, was handing out posters and organizing chants of support. Anna, with a worried expression, was trying to moderate the situation, reminding everyone that safety was a priority. Maya, on the other hand, felt a knot in her stomach. Looking at the crowd, the idea of joining them made her more nervous than ever. "You will be fine, Maya," Lucas said, noticing her hesitation. "You are the reason we are here. Your name needs to be heard." That pressure made her want to hide. She wanted to be strong, but insecurity overwhelmed her. As the crowd prepared to march, she sat on a bench watching from a distance. The fear of exposing herself was greater than the desire to fight. The protest began with chants of support, but soon turned into an agitated crowd. Marcus, watching from afar, was worried about Maya's safety. He knew emotions were running high, and anything could go wrong. Deep down, he wondered if he was right to let his daughter expose herself to this kind of situation. Meanwhile, the tension was rising. The police, present to ensure safety, began to position themselves more aggressively. The atmosphere, which had once been one of unity, started to turn into something more threatening. Maya, scared, saw the crowd getting restless, and fear took over her. What should have been an act of courage and solidarity now felt like a bomb about to explode. The shouts began to intensify, and the atmosphere carried an electric energy. Lucas, noticing the change, tried to keep the spirits up, but Anna's concern was visible. "We need to calm down," she exclaimed, trying to bring some control to the situation. But the crowd was restless, and Maya felt even more isolated. Her mind was in turmoil, and the only thing she could think about was how all of this made her feel powerless. Maya finally stood up and, with a burst of courage, decided she needed to find her father. She crossed through the crowd, her heart pounding. When she got close to Marcus, she saw the worried look on his face. "Dad, I can't do this. I can't face all of this alone," she said, her voice trembling. Marcus hugged her tightly, feeling her fear. "You are not alone, Maya. We are in this together. Remember, you have your voice, and it is powerful. Even if you are not ready to shout right now, that does not diminish who you are." His words were a balm, but doubt still lingered over Maya, and as the crowd swirled around them, she realized that the fight was only just beginning. Maya felt her heart race as she watched the turmoil around her. The crowd that had once seemed united was now transforming into a sea of uncertainties and tensions. The voices that had once cried out for justice now mingled in screams of fear and frustration. She looked at her father, Marcus, and saw the worry on his face, reflecting her own insecurities. His embrace made her feel a little safer, but there was still a storm inside her. "I don't know if I'm strong enough, Dad," she admitted, her voice choked. "What if this all ends in chaos? What if I can't handle all of this?" The words came out as a release, a mix of fear and frustration that consumed her. Marcus, realizing the depth of his daughter's anguish, held her tighter. "Maya, courage is not the absence of fear. It is facing that fear, even when it feels unbearable." She took a deep breath, trying to absorb her father's words, but instead of feeling empowered, the pressure increased. What did it mean to be brave after all? Was it to expose herself and take risks, or could it be to remain on the sidelines, protecting herself from what scared her? The idea of failing, of disappointing those who were there for her, weighed heavily on her heart. Meanwhile, the agitation of the crowd grew. Lucas, who had been so enthusiastic before, was now trying to shout to calm his peers, but there was a palpable tension in the air. The police, in their authoritative stance, began to move more aggressively. Maya's fear intensified as she saw a group of police officers approaching, and the image of previous confrontations haunted her. Memories of what had happened before, when violence had erupted, returned to her mind like a painful echo. Insecurity overwhelmed her, and at that moment the idea of exposing herself felt more frightening than ever. She looked at Lucas, his eyes full of determination, and wondered if he truly understood what was at stake. What he saw as a fight for justice, she viewed as a battlefield where the consequences could be devastating. As the crowd began to stir, Maya decided to step away. She needed a moment to think, to process everything that was happening. Struggling, she moved away from the turmoil and found a quieter corner where she could breathe. The pressure of being the center of attention, of being the reason everyone was there, was becoming unbearable. She sat on a bench, her head in her hands, and tears began to roll down her face. She thought, I am not a hero, feeling helpless. I am just a scared girl. The pain of her story, which she had been trying to transform into strength, now felt like an unbearable burden. What should have been an act of courage was turning into a nightmare, and she felt increasingly distant from who she wanted to be. The idea of failing, of disappointing Lucas, Anna, and even her father, consumed her. That moment of solitude made her reflect on her choices. She thought of all the times she hesitated, all the times she let fear take over. Life wasn't just about victories, but also about mistakes and new beginnings. But how could she start over if she wasn't sure she was strong enough for it? Doubt surrounded her, and she felt lost amid the confusion of the crowd. It was then that Lucas's voice rang out in the distance, calling her. "Maya, come here! We need you!" The urgency in his voice broke the spell of her despair. She realized that even in her weakness, there were people who believed in her, who saw her as a vital part of that struggle. The idea of being a symbol of hope, even though she didn't feel that way, began to resonate in her heart. Maya stood up, feeling a wave of determination rise within her. She didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to be true. What she had been through was part of her story, and maybe, just maybe, it could help others. With her heart racing, she began to walk back toward the crowd. When she reached Lucas's side, he looked at her with relief. "Are you feeling okay?" He didn't realize the internal struggle she had faced, but at that moment Maya decided she didn't need to hide her insecurities. "I was scared," she confessed, her words coming out sincerely. "But I want to be part of this. I want my voice to be heard." Lucas smiled, and for a moment Maya felt she could face the world. The crowd was agitated, but around her was an energy of hope and a fight for justice. She was not alone. There were people united for a greater cause, and even though the path was difficult, she was willing to take the first step. The protest, which once seemed a source of fear, was now transforming into a space of strength and solidarity. With Lucas's hand holding hers, Maya felt that her journey was just beginning. The fight for justice and the search for her own voice intertwined, and even though the future was uncertain, she was ready to face it. Maya felt the adrenaline pulsing through her veins as she walked back to the crowd. Lucas's presence by her side was a reminder that despite her doubts and fears, she was not alone. He looked at her with a smile that conveyed hope. But inside her, a storm still raged. What would happen if she failed? What would it mean for all those who hoped she would be a leader? As they approached the heart of the protest, Maya noticed that the energy around them was changing. The cries of despair were turning into words of unity and determination. People were embracing, holding signs and singing songs that echoed a desire for change, yet even so, uncertainty lingered. The fight for justice made her feel like an intruder, as if she were not up to the challenge. "Are you okay?" Lucas asked, breaking the silence that had formed between them as they maneuvered through the crowd. The concern in his gaze was genuine, and it made Maya feel a little stronger. "I'm trying," she replied hesitantly. "I'm just thinking about all of this, and sometimes it's hard not to feel overwhelmed." "It's normal to feel that way," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We're all grappling with our own fears. The important thing is that we're here together. You don't need to be perfect, Maya. You just need to be yourself." Lucas's words penetrated her mind. The idea of not needing to be a hero but just to be true echoed in her heart. But at the same time, insecurities still consumed her. What if even being true, she couldn't make a difference? What if people saw her as weak? As they continued to move through the crowd, she remembered Anna, her childhood friend, who had been by her side during the toughest moments. Anna had always believed in her, even when Maya doubted herself. Spotting Anna in the crowd, a smile lit up her face, and hope began to blossom in her heart. "Maya, you made it!" Anna shouted, running toward her. They embraced, and the strength of Anna's affection made Maya feel that maybe she really wasn't alone. I was so worried. When you disappeared, I thought something had happened. I needed some time, Maya confessed, feeling a little lighter. Maya was struggling with some things in her head. Anna looked at her with understanding. I know how it is. We are all facing our own ghosts. But you are stronger than you think. Remember what you did before, Maya. You've been through a lot and you're still here. Una's words began to calm Maya's inner storm. The acknowledgement of her past struggles brought a new perspective on her strength. She started to realize that overcoming wasn't a linear path, but a journey full of ups and downs. And maybe, just maybe, the fact that she was there in that moment was already a form of courage. As they talked, the crowd began to prepare for a new march. The atmosphere was intensifying, and the voices joined in a deafening chorus. Maya's adrenaline surged, but now it felt different. There was a sense of belonging. She was not just a face in the crowd, she was part of something bigger. The fear was still there, but it was no longer paralyzing. It was a reminder that courage was an ongoing act. Come on, we need to join the rest of the group, Lucas said, pulling Maya by the arm. We're ready to make some noise. Maya nodded, feeling determination grow within her. As she walked alongside Lucas and Anna, she felt a new purpose forming. She didn't need to have all the answers or know exactly how things would end. What mattered was that she was willing to fight, to use her voice, even if it trembled. But the journey was not without challenges. As she joined the crowd, she realized that her feelings of insecurity hadn't completely vanished. There were moments when doubt began to creep back in, especially when she faced unfamiliar faces. What would they think of her? What if she said something silly? The internal struggle continued, but now there was a new focus, the desire to be a voice for those who felt invisible. "Hey, Maya!" A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Lucas again, now with a more serious look. "Are you ready to speak? The microphone is available, and I think you should introduce yourself." Maya froze. The invitation was unexpected and terrifying. Speaking to a crowd made her feel exposed, and the idea of having to articulate her thoughts out loud seemed like a colossal challenge. But looking at the faces around her, she saw people who believed in what they were fighting for. The idea of being a symbol of hope, even if small, began to form in her mind. I need a moment," she said, her voice trembling. Lucas nodded and she stepped away a bit, looking for a space where she could collect her thoughts. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm that still accompanied her. What did she want to say? What was truly important? She sat on a nearby bench, watching the crowd, now pulsating with life and emotion. People were there for a reason, and that made her reflect on what really mattered. She didn't need to be perfect, she just needed to be honest about her experiences. Her pains and victories might, perhaps, resonate with others. When she finally stood up, she felt a new kind of courage within herself. It was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it. She walked back to Lucas and Anna, who were waiting for her with anticipation. "I'm going to speak," she announced, and a smile of encouragement lit up Lucas's face. "That's right. We're with you," he said, as Anna held her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. As she stepped onto the small makeshift stage, Maya's heart raced. She looked at the crowd, took a deep breath, and prepared to share her truth. The fear was still present, but the determination to be a voice for those who felt lost began to prevail. After all, her journey wasn't just about herself, it was about all those who were fighting alongside her. And in that moment, Maya realized that even amidst uncertainty, she had a role to play. And who knows, maybe this was the beginning of a new story. Maya felt the adrenaline pulse in her veins as she walked back to the crowd. Lucas's presence beside her was a reminder that despite the doubts and fears, she was not alone. He looked at her with a smile that conveyed hope, but inside her, a storm still raged. What would happen if she failed? What would that mean for all those who were counting on her to be a leader? As they approached the heart of the protest, Maya noticed that the energy around them was changing. The cries of despair were transforming into words of unity and determination. People were hugging, holding signs, and singing songs that echoed a desire for change. But still, the uncertainty accompanied her. The fight for justice made her feel like an intruder, as if she wasn't up to the challenge. "Are you okay?" Lucas asked, breaking the silence that had formed between them as they moved through the crowd. The concern in his gaze was genuine, and it made Maya feel a little stronger. "I'm trying," she replied hesitantly. "I'm just thinking about all of this, and sometimes it's hard not to feel overwhelmed." "It's normal to feel that way," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We're all struggling with our own fears. What matters is that we're here together. You don't need to be perfect, Maya. You just need to be yourself." Lucas's words sank into her mind. The idea of not needing to be a hero, but just being true, echoed in her heart. She began to realize that overcoming wasn't a linear path, but a journey full of ups and downs. And maybe, just maybe, the fact that she was there, in that moment, was already a form of courage. As they continued to move through the crowd, she remembered Anna, her childhood friend, who had been by her side during the toughest times. Anna had always believed in her, even when Maya doubted herself. Spotting Anna in the crowd, a smile lit up her face, and that made hope begin to blossom in her heart. "Maya, you made it!" Anna shouted, running toward her. They hugged, and the strength of Anna's affection made Maya feel that perhaps she really wasn't alone. "I was so worried. When you disappeared, I thought something had happened. I needed some time," Maya confessed, feeling a little lighter. "I was struggling with some things in my head." Anna looked at her with understanding. "I know how it is. We all have our own ghosts to face, but you are stronger than you think. Remember what you did before, Maya. You've been through so much, and you're still here." Anna's words began to calm Maya's inner storm. The recognition of her past struggles brought a new perspective on her strength. She started to realize that overcoming challenges was not a linear path, but a journey full of ups and downs, and maybe, just maybe, the fact that she was there at that moment was already a form of courage. As they talked, the crowd began to prepare for a new march. The atmosphere was intensifying, and voices united in a deafening chorus. Maya's adrenaline surged, but now it felt different. There was a sense of belonging. She was not just a face in the crowd. She was part of something bigger. The fear was still there, but it was no longer paralyzing. It was a reminder that courage was an ongoing act. "Come on. We need to join the rest of the group," Lucas said, pulling Maya by the arm. "We're ready to make some noise." Maya nodded, feeling determination grow within her. As she walked alongside Lucas and Anna, she felt a new purpose forming. She didn't need to have all the answers or know exactly how things would end. What mattered was that she was willing to fight, to use her voice, even if it trembled. But the journey was not without challenges. As she joined the crowd, she realized that her feelings of insecurity hadn't completely disappeared. There were moments when doubt crept back in, especially when she faced unfamiliar faces. What would they think of her? What if she said something foolish? The internal struggle continued, but now there was a new focus, the desire to be a voice for those who felt invisible. "Hey, Maya!" A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Lucas again, now with a more serious look. "Are you ready to speak? The microphone is available, and I think you should go up." Maya froze. The invitation was unexpected and terrifying. Speaking to a crowd made her feel exposed, and the idea of having to articulate her thoughts out loud seemed like a colossal challenge. But as she looked at the faces around her, she saw people who believed in what they were fighting for. The idea of being a symbol of hope, however small, began to take shape in her mind. I need a moment," she said, her voice trembling. Lucas nodded, and she stepped away a bit, seeking a space where she could gather her thoughts. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm that still accompanied her. What did she want to say? What was really important? She sat on a nearby bench, watching the crowd pulse with life and emotion. People were there for a reason, and that made her reflect on what really mattered. She didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to be honest about her experiences. Her pains and victories might, perhaps, resonate with others. When she finally stood up, she felt a new kind of courage inside her. It wasn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it. She walked back to Lucas and Anna, who were waiting for her with anticipation. "I'm going to speak," she announced, and a smile of encouragement lit up Lucas's face. "That's right. We're with you," he said, while Anna held her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. As she stepped onto the small, makeshift stage, Maya's heart raced. She looked at the crowd, took a deep breath, and prepared to share her truth. The fear was still present, but the determination to be a voice for those who felt lost began to prevail. After all, her journey was not just about herself. It was about all those who were fighting alongside her. And in that moment, Maya realized that even amidst uncertainty, she had a role to play. And who knows, maybe this was the beginning of a new story. Maya stepped onto the makeshift stage, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. The crowd watched her with anticipation, and she could feel the weight of their gazes. It felt as if every pair of eyes was waiting for something grand, but she didn't feel grand. She felt small and vulnerable, and doubt began to rehearse its return, like a shadow threatening to swallow her whole. She took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. The microphone felt heavy in her hands, and the voice in her head whispered that she wasn't good enough, that failing would be devastating. What if she made a mistake? What if no one listened to her? But looking at Lucas and Anna in the crowd, she felt a small thread of courage forming. They were there, believing in her. And for a moment, that felt like enough. "My name is Maya," she began, her voice trembling. "I'm here because I am one of those people who is also struggling." The murmur of the crowd encouraged her, and seeing the supportive expressions on the faces around her made some of the tension dissipate. "I am not perfect. Throughout my life, I have faced many doubts. I felt that I wasn't good enough, that I would never be the leader everyone expected." The words began to flow more easily now, each one filling a vacant space within her. "I have always believed that I needed to be strong, that I couldn't show weakness. But in reality, we all have our fears and uncertainties, don't we?" The crowd reacted, some nodding their heads, others murmuring in agreement. Acknowledging their personal struggles encouraged her to continue. "Recently I lost myself. I was so focused on trying to be someone I am not that I lost touch with who I really am. I felt alone, even while surrounded by people who cared about me." Maya hesitated, recalling the times she almost gave up. When the pressure felt unbearable and the idea of failing paralyzed her. "There was a moment when I thought I wouldn't be able to face this, but then I realized I didn't have to do it alone. I was surrounded by people who, just like me, feel and struggle every day." The memories of Anna and Lucas supporting her strengthened her. She felt the connection between them, and it made her realize that true strength comes from vulnerability and unity. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to feel insecure. But that shouldn't stop us from fighting for what we believe in. We have a voice, and it matters. Our fears do not define us. They are just part of our journey. At that moment, Maya looked directly at the faces watching her, and a wave of empathy enveloped her. If you are here today, it's because you care, because you believe in a better future, and together we can make a difference. We need to support each other. We need to unite. The words began to flow with more confidence, and the tension that had previously dominated her started to dissipate. "I don't know exactly how this struggle will end, but I know that each of us has a role to play. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to be real, and more importantly, we need to be there for each other." The crowd began to applaud, and that encouraged her to continue. She was no longer alone on that stage. She felt part of a larger movement, a wave of change that was about to happen. Let's be the voice of those who cannot speak. Let's fight for those who are silenced. Let's turn this pain into strength. The energy was rising, and Maya felt a wave of emotion take over her. Tears streamed down her face, but they were tears of liberation. She had faced her fears, and the vulnerability that once paralyzed her now empowered her. Looking at Lucas and Anna, she saw that their unconditional support was a light guiding her, but a thought hit her hard, a painful reminder of a past failure. I failed once. I let my fears dominate me, and that made me retreat when I should have moved forward. But today I choose not to let that happen again. Today I choose to be brave, even when afraid. Today I choose you. The applause became deafening, and the crowd responded to her energy. The connection between them was palpable. Maya realized that even amidst uncertainty and vulnerability, there was immense power in unity. And in that moment, she was not just an insecure young woman. She was a leader, a voice, a part of something bigger. "Let's go together. Let's fight together," she shouted, and the crowd echoed her words. The feeling of belonging and purpose enveloped her, and for the first time, Maya felt completely alive. She had faced and overcome her fears, discovering an inner strength she didn't know she had. And there, in front of everyone, she found herself ready to fight, not just for herself, but for all those seeking hope and change. Maya felt the energy of the crowd pulse around her, as if every applause and shout of support wrapped her in a warm embrace. After her speech, everything seemed different. The insecurity that had followed her for so long had dissipated, and a new determination blossomed within her. It wasn't just the victory of a moment, it was the promise of lasting transformation. After the event, as she walked away from the stage, Lucas and Anna approached her, their faces lit up with genuine smiles. "You were amazing, Maya," Lucas exclaimed, his eyes shining with admiration. Anna, with a proud expression, added, "You really touched everyone's heart." Maya felt a warmth grow in her chest. "Thank you, but I couldn't have done it without you. You always believed in me, even when I doubted." Gratitude overflowed in her words, and the three embraced, creating an even stronger bond between them. In the days that followed, Maya began to notice subtle changes in her life. The confidence she gained on stage reflected in her daily routine. She enrolled in a public speaking course, determined to improve her communication skills. For her, it wasn't just about having a voice, it was about learning to use it effectively. Each class challenged her to confront her insecurities and express herself clearly. Lucas and Anna also benefited from Maya's new perspective. Lucas, who had always felt a bit invisible in his social circles, began to open up more about his feelings and aspirations. He signed up for a theater group, a desire he had always had but never had the courage to pursue. "Your courage inspired me, Maya. If you can face your fears, I can too," he said in an animated conversation. Ina, in turn, began to organize community gatherings where people could share their stories, just as Maya did on stage. "I want to create a safe space for all of us, a place where we can support each other and learn from one another," the friend explained, with a determined glint in her eyes. Maya realized that her and Lucas's courage was creating a domino effect, pushing everyone to become better versions of themselves. But the changes did not come without challenges. There were days when Maya still struggled with self-criticism, moments when the old doubt threatened to return. One afternoon, while walking in a park, she remembered a phrase she had heard during one of her courses. "The journey is just as important as the destination." This resonated with her. It wasn't about being perfect, but about continuing to move forward, learn, and grow. Maya decided it was time to share these ups and downs with the crowd that had supported her. She organized a new event, this time focused on sharing experiences. With the help of Lucas and Anna, she prepared a space where others could take the stage and tell their stories. We all have our battles. Let's celebrate our victories and support each other in our defeats, she said, feeling that each word carried the weight of the reality everyone lived. On the day of the event, the atmosphere was charged with emotion. People of different ages and backgrounds gathered, and Maya realized that her role had transformed. She was not just the protagonist of her own story, but a facilitator of connections. When she saw a nervous young woman approaching the microphone, she felt a wave of empathy. She remembered her own insecurity in the same place. "You can do it. We're all here for you," she encouraged, and the young woman smiled, feeling empowered. The event was a success, and Maya saw her idea flourish. People began to connect, support each other, share their experiences, and the room filled with laughter, tears, and applause. It was a testament that even in failures, there was room for new beginnings and growth. Over time, Maya understood that her true success was not in being perfect or avoiding failures, but in being willing to face her fears and open up to the world. She learned to value the small victories, to celebrate vulnerability as a sign of strength. And more importantly, she learned that human connections were what truly mattered. Looking at her friends, Maya saw not only companions on the journey, but a new family. Together, they had created something meaningful, a cycle of support and love that transcended the uncertainties of life. And so, with each new challenge that arose, Maya felt more prepared. She was not alone. She had friends, a community, and above all, a new understanding of herself and what it meant to be truly courageous. Maya looked out the window of her apartment, watching the city pulse with life below. It was a sunny afternoon, and the gentle breeze brought with it the scent of flowers beginning to bloom in spring. Looking back, she reflected on the journey that had transformed her. In recent months, she had become a different person, stronger and more confident. That insecure young woman who once hesitated to step onto the stage now saw herself as a catalyst for change. The lessons she had learned became part of her essence. Every word she spoke at the event, every story shared, helped her understand that life was a series of ups and downs. Failures were not the end, but opportunities to start over. Instead of fearing criticism, she learned to accept it as part of the journey. The fear did not disappear completely, but now she knew how to face it, and that was enough. Lucas and Anna, her friends and companions on the journey, had also transformed. Lucas, who once felt invisible, now shone in his theatre group. He not only allowed himself to shine, but also inspired others to express themselves. Anna, with her organizing spirit, had created a support network in the community where people gathered to share their stories and help each other. Maya felt immense pride seeing her friends thrive and become the best versions of themselves. The friendship they formed was an indestructible bond, built on vulnerability and courage. They learned to celebrate small victories together, offer support in difficult times, and laugh at the failures that once left them insecure. This new dynamic among them was a source of energy that nourished their souls. Maya recognized that in every challenge they faced, they were creating a lasting impact on their lives and the lives of others. Maya decided it was time to expand this impact even further. With the support of Lucas and Anna, she launched a project aimed at helping young people find their voices. The project included communication workshops where participants could learn to express themselves authentically and impactfully. She believed that by empowering others, she could create a multiplier effect. Each person who overcame their hesitation and connected with their true essence could in turn inspire more people. With each workshop, Maya saw transformations happen before her eyes. Young people who were once shy and insecure now presented themselves with confidence. They shared their stories, their struggles, and above all, their victories. Maya was moved to see how their experiences, no matter how challenging, could illuminate the path for others. It was an achievement that went beyond any material success. It was a true human connection. The impact of Maya's journey was not limited to her, Lucas, and Anna. Over time, the community began to unite around this idea of mutual support. People started gathering, not only to share stories, but also to take concrete actions that benefited everyone. The feeling of solidarity grew, and a network of friendship and support flourished, transforming lives. Maya realized that true success was not measured in personal achievements, but in the changes she and her friends could create in the lives of others. The wealth she sought was not material, but emotional. The true treasure lay in the relationships they built, the stories they shared, and the lives they touched. Every laugh, every tear, every moment of vulnerability became part of a rich and colorful tapestry that was now part of her life. As she reflected on everything she had been through, Maya felt a deep sense of gratitude. The challenges she faced, the insecurities she overcame, all of it led her to become the person she was now. She had learned that life was not about avoiding failures, but about learning from them. What once seemed like an obstacle was now seen as an opportunity for growth. Maya smiled as she remembered each step of this journey. The courage she found within herself led her to a place where she could help others find their own. She realized that life was a continuous cycle of learning and starting over. And so, with every new story she heard, with every new connection she made, she felt more at peace with herself and the world around her. Maya's journey was far from over. She knew that new challenges would arise, but now she was equipped with the tools needed to face them. Looking ahead, she felt confident that no matter what came her way, she had friends by her side and a community that supported her. And above all, she was certain that her voice, now stronger than ever, would continue to echo, inspiring others to rise up and tell their stories. Maya looked out at the city skyline, a vibrant spectacle that reflected everything she had been through. Each day felt like a new chapter in her story, and now, looking back, she could see how all the pieces fit together. Lucas and Anna were by her side, sharing laughs and memories of the struggles they faced together. Lucas asked with a smile, "Do you remember the first time we got on that stage? I was so nervous I almost fainted." "Yes," Maya replied, laughing, "and I almost gave up on speaking. But look at us now. We accomplished all of this together." Anna, always the organizer, added, "And it all started with the simple act of being honest about our fears. It's incredible how that brought us here." Maya reflected on the importance of vulnerability. The courage to open up and share their weaknesses had been the key to their growth. Remember what we learned. Our failures shape us. Every stumble is a new opportunity to start over. With her gaze fixed on the city, she felt a wave of gratitude for every moment of the journey. She had learned that true success was not in individual achievements, but in the ability to impact the lives of others. The change she sought in society began within her and spread like a fire warming hearts. "I wish everyone could experience this," Maya said, emotion showing in her voice. "If we could take this message to more people so they could find their voices too." "Then let's do it!" Lucas exclaimed, more excited than ever. "We can expand our project, invite more young people to join us. We can't stop here." Anna nodded, her eyes shining with the idea. "And we can hold community events, a true movement of support and transformation." Maya smiled, realizing that the flame of change they had ignited not only illuminated their lives, but could also shine brightly for others. The idea of helping more people find their voices excited her. It was like a chain that could spread, connecting people and creating a safe space for expression. As they talked, a sense of purpose enveloped her. The journey had been filled with challenges, but each of them had contributed to her strength and resilience. She had learned the importance of getting back up after every fall, forgiving herself for her failures, and seeing the beauty in imperfections. "I know we will still face challenges," Maya said, looking into her friend's eyes. "But now we have a solid foundation and each other, and that makes all the difference." "Exactly," Lucas agreed. "Life is a roller coaster, but with you guys I'm ready for anything." Ina added with a serene smile, "And no matter what happens, we will always have our friendship as a pillar. That's what keeps us strong." Maya held those words close to her heart. Their friendship was not just a support, it was a symbol of everything they had achieved together. With each challenge overcome, their bond grew stronger, more resilient. The connection they formed was unique, based on love, understanding, and a genuine desire to see each other thrive. By the end of that day, as the sun began to set, Maya realized that her journey was far from over. There was a vast world full of silent voices waiting to be heard, and she was determined to make a difference. "Let's do something big," she said, determination overflowing in her voice. "Let's be the voice that many have yet to find." The energy in the room was palpable. They were ready to take the next step, not just for their own lives, but for the lives of others. And so, Maya remembered an important detail. Everyone had a story worth telling. Each one had the power to transform their experiences into learning and inspiration. Maya then turned to the invisible audience surrounding her, as if addressing all those who could benefit from her message. If you are struggling to find your voice, know that you are not alone. Your story matters, and it's never too late to start over. Don't be afraid to open up, to be vulnerable. It is in this space that true transformation happens. She took a deep breath, feeling that the time had come for an act of courage. I invite you to share your experiences, your struggles, and your victories. Every word has the power to change lives. Together, we can create a movement that will echo throughout the city and beyond. Maya knew that by encouraging others to express themselves, she was planting seeds of transformation. And with that, a new phase of her journey was about to begin, filled with promises, friendships, and above all, the certainty that each of them had the power to make a difference. If you made it this far and identified with this story, leave in the comments, "I watched until the end." Show that you were impacted, and don't forget to click on the video that appears on the final screen. This small gesture helps us a lot and can inspire other people to discover this amazing content.